Making money is one thing, but saving and keeping and growing quite another. That's why in this video I want to share with you what I do every single month to make sure I stay on top of all my income, spendings and overall net worth, which hopefully grows over time. Now you might think you're already doing this and you kind of know your numbers, right? But let me ask you, do you know exactly how much you spent in the entire last year? What about your saving rate? How much in percentage of your income do you actually save? How much of that do you actually invest? And lastly, how much is your current net worth? That should just be one number. What's your net worth? Do you know that? Most people that I speak to and ask these questions actually have no idea. They think they know, but actually when you really ask them about the details, they don't. And then they start thinking, I kind of roughly know. But it's funny, we go to work on our own business or work for an employer and there we're so detail oriented. We need to know all the numbers, how much revenue we made, how much profit, those things we know. But when it comes to our own life, we tend to forget about this. So I think it's super important that we take measure at least once a month. And honestly, this exercise I'm going to show you takes me no more than 30 minutes tops maximum, because I'm all about efficiency. If a process is too complicated, it's just going to take too much time and in the end, you're going to forget about it. But I've been doing this for the last, I don't know how many years. And for me, it's so amazing to go back now and see where I came from, how my saving rate changed over time, how my income changed, my savings changed, and overall net worth grew over time. So I think it's super important. As the saying goes, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So if you want to level up your finance game, I think it starts by knowing how much you earn, how much you spend, and then you can go from there and build up upon that. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's go. Not too bad. By the way, as you can see, today slightly different setup. We're going to be for 1 month in Tenerife. So next few videos, you're going to see that backdrop. Maybe not the prettiest of all, but hopefully it still gets the job done. And most importantly, you get some value out of this video. So the tool I'm going to be using is my monthly net worth tracking template. And I actually made it available as a free download. So click the link in the description below to get it. And you can start following the same. So actually it's a really straightforward template, as you can see. So the first thing you want to do is make sure to click on file over here and then make a copy to your own drive. And then you can start editing it, because otherwise, you won't be able to edit your own numbers in there. So that's the first thing. From here, you can basically see at the very top, you have here the summary, which is obviously very important to see how much you spend every single month, your income, your expenses, and overall profit, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to make a profit, because you don't want to end up spending more than you earn, right? That's not sustainable. It might happen 1 or 2 months, but if that continuously happens, you really have a financial problem, because you're going to run out of savings and then you're going to go into debt. And that's really the worst thing you can do with your money. So honestly, make sure that number is always green. If it's negative, it will be red automatically. If it's positive, it's green, and you want to have a green number. The higher, the better, ideally. So here you have to do nothing. It basically comes and pulls the numbers from the system. So then you can also see your total income, your total expenses, and your spending rate. So that's really important, because you kind of want to know, how much of my money do I spend roughly? Is it 50%? Is it 10%? Is it 90%? Well, probably not 90%. That'd be highly unlikely. And again, that number really depends on you. If you're just starting your career, obviously your saving rate won't be that high, because a lot of the money that you earn, you have to spend on your living expenses. But the higher your income goes, you don't want to increase the same percentage, right? If you're young and have a saving rate of, let's say, 20%, once your income grows, you don't want to keep on spending as much in proportion. Otherwise, you still only have 20%, even you make 10,000 a month, right? So I think it's important to make sure your expenses don't proportionately increase with your income. That's when you start really seeing the growth in your wealth over time. Right, from here, what you want to do is go and start with your income, because in the end of the day, all your savings don't matter if you don't earn any money, right? Because you want to have income. Start working on your income, especially if you start early on. People are so focused with investing, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong. But if you want to invest without having real income coming into your account, it's very difficult to multiply that, right? The first and most important, I think, is growing your income. Now, for most people, that might be salary. If you're an employee, probably you're just going to have a straightforward salary, and then you're going to put this here every single month. And that's really all there is to it. I always recommend putting the net salary, what's actually coming into your account, not the gross, even though gross sounds nice. When people say, oh, I make 6 figures. But at the end of the day, if that's a gross figure, you take out 30-40% of tax. In the end, it's actually not that much. So I always like to talk about net figures, so after tax. So you're going to put this over here. And then for some of you, you might have some side hustles, or you don't have a salary and you're self-employed, and then you put all your different income sources over here. So in my case, obviously, I don't have a salary anymore. I used to have. I was a luxury general manager for a 5-star hotel, but I don't have that salary anymore. But I traded my 9 to 5 for 24/7, doing these videos plus many other things, and I honestly love it. I'm time and location independent, as you can see, coming to you from Tenerife, previously in Dubai. So for me, it's really nice. But anyways, it doesn't matter what's your life circumstance right now. You can always change that if you wanted to one day. just make sure you list all your various incomes over here, what you have. I have rent income as well from my Dubai properties. I have cashback every single month. I have dividends income and interest income. So I make sure I track all of those over here. In fact, for my YouTube, there are so many different income sources over there actually. And what I do every single month, I write down all the numbers over here. So let's say from YouTube, I would make 1,000 and then another one, I make 250. 500, whatever it will be. The numbers obviously depend on you and you can just quickly add it. You can write online course income or freelance income, whatever it is, but some of you might have different income sources and my income doesn't all come on the same day anymore. So what I usually do, as soon as I know how much I earned that month, it's different to when I get paid. So what I would do then, put the amount over here, and then if it has been paid, all I will do is simply make it green. I know it has been paid, received into my bank account, and that's done, right? If it's still not paid, I leave it white over here. And if it's pending and overdue, I would just make it red or orange, what have you. And I know I have to follow up if a partner hasn't paid me or a sponsorship hasn't paid me or what have you, then I know I have to go back to that. And that's basically all to it. And then automatically that total amount, I basically link it back into my YouTube income over here. So once again, if you have freelance income and you have different clients, you can list them all separately and then it will link it back to your respective income, which in my case, YouTube might be freelance for you. So that's really quick and easy to make sure, honestly, you know how much you income, because a lot of people don't even know how much they earn, right? Especially if you have more than just one job. People really get lost with this. And I think it's so important. You want to know how much you earn. I think it's exciting. So this usually is very fast and quick for me to do. Then we move to the expense part. Now, this might be a little bit messy for some of you and take a little bit longer, but I actually found a way how I can do this fairly quickly. And for that, I'm using Revolut. And most apps these days and banks, they have a feature where they auto categorize all the expenses, because I used to write them down literally on an Excel sheet and I would have to go every time I spent a coffee, open my Excel sheet, put the expense there to track it. And honestly, it's just so tedious and cumbersome. What ends up happening? You're not going to do it, right? So that's why it's so important to make it as simple as possible. So for me, I mostly use Revolut to track all my expenses and use my card, my Revolut card, for all the spending. That way I have all my spending in one app. And I use my Revolut Pro card to get 1.2% cashback on my Revolut Ultra plan. But even if you're on the normal Revolut plan, for example, you can also track that over here. So it's really up to you. But in my case, I use the Pro card and you have amazing analytics. You can swipe here quickly between the different months. So I can see all the various months and I can see the money coming in as well as money going out. So here it's very simple. Basically, I would look at it and it listed from highest to lowest. I can see in January, I ate out way too much, 1,500 euros. I can click on it. I can see all the various expenses over here. And then all I have to do, I would go back into my sheet and just put the number 1,589 and boom, that's it. And then I would go down the list. Next point, groceries, go back to the sheet once again, put groceries. So you can see it's super straightforward. Basically, in my case, I have 10, 11 positions. So that literally takes me 1-2 minutes just to put the numbers in here and I'm done with this, right? Now, of course, Revolut doesn't get it 100% right all the time because, for example, some of the transportations, I would say when you go to the petrol station and you don't put petrol, but you buy yourself a coffee and a snack, what have you, it would go under transportation. So in this case, the category might not be 100% accurate, but at the same time, you're still going to be tracking your expenses. So for me, I'm not so obsessed with this anymore. If there's slight deviation, most of the expenses, they get it right. Sometimes, the big numbers, I just go through, for example, restaurant to make sure those are kind of aligned, but majority of the cases, it gets it pretty much right, which is really cool. And once again, makes things so much easier than if you had to download a PDF of all your spendings for the whole month. You're going to have hundreds of positions. To add them all up, it's going to be a nightmare. So make sure you use a tool like that. There's another tool I used to use. It's called Curve Card. So basically, Curve Card is one card or one app that combines all your various cards into one single app. In case you have 5 different cards, that exercise might take a little bit longer, right? In this case, Curve tracks it all through one card. You can add as many cards as you want, and then you can still categorize it into each category. So I used to use them. I kept coming back to Revolut for the higher cashback and just ease of use. I prefer the app. But in the end, so many apps and banks these days have some kind of auto classification of expenses. Now, in case you do use another app, as I do as well, now being in the process of relocating to Dubai, I have a Dubai bank account. And obviously when I'm there, I spend with that card rather than my Revolut card. And I get also a nice cashback over there and savings. So it makes sense for me. So now I have basically 2 accounts that I spend and then I still want to track it. So what I do over here, I also go into my highlights and you can see once again, very nicely categorized by different categories. So in this case, if I go into restaurants, I can see the restaurants over here. I spend in total 1,494 dirhams. Now, yes, is this a different currency? I would just jump over on Google, quickly enter how much it is. 1,494 is 373 euros. Go back into my sheet. And then in restaurants, I already have one number. And then all you have to do is click enter. Basically put an equal sign over here, put the first number that you had, add a plus, and then put the second number, which was 373. Put it there and boom. Now I have my total for the month of January in terms of restaurants. Now, let's say I'm in Spain and use my Wise card for all I know, and I spent 250 euros there. I would just add another plus 250, and boom, I would have all my restaurant spending for the month of January, right? So you can see how simple it is. Obviously, the more cards, a slightly longer it takes. If you only have one, it makes things easier. You just write down those numbers and you can delete some of those numbers. I don't know, in case you don't have a pet, obviously take the number out here. In case you don't have any business services, take it out over here. Or you don't do donations, which I think you should be doing, take it out. Man, doesn't matter. It's up to you. Or you don't tip. It's really up to you. You can even add any more if you want to do. Right click over here, insert row above, row below. So it's very, very simple to do. And yeah, in the end, it basically gives you a total. And then you can see how much in a given month you spend in that particular month. So I think it's so powerful to know that number, and you should really know that number. Right, so let's give you an example. If you earn, let's say 5,000 euros in 1 month and all you spend, let's say 500 euros here, 200 euros on grocery and 100 euros on travel. Let's just for the sake of the exercise. And let's say also people probably have to pay the rent. So let's say 1,000 euros for the rent. So I have my total spend, I have my income. So in total, you can see here for the month of January, you would have had a profit of 3,200 euros. Not too shabby, is it, right? And that means you had a spending rate of 36% and a savings rate of 64%. So basically, that's the average of all the various months. If next month's higher or lower, that number will automatically be updated. So I think it's just good to know, good practice to understand what's your savings rate. I think that's a very important number to know. With this, we move on to tracking your net worth, because here we basically did the profit and loss statement, right? Your income minus your expenses is your profit or your loss if you spend more than you earn. Now we talk about tracking your net worth, because your net worth is not 1 month's income that you made, right? Your net worth is how much you actually have in your possessions, your money in the bank account, your investments, your real estate, all of these assets, so to say, minus your liabilities, all your debts that you have, loans, mortgages, whatever it is. And that overall determines your net worth. So if somebody asks what you're worth, well, obviously it's not just a number, but the net worth in financial terms, this is exactly what we're calculating next. So here we start off with all your various holdings in different bank account. Now, most of you might have different banks. I have a number of bank accounts that I have, and you can just easily write them all down over here, add more if you wanted to, or remove them. Again, up to you. And then fill out. Just open your bank account and see how much you physically have in there. So I don't know, let's say you have 10,000 euros in one account. Let's say another account, you have 2,000 euros. So you would have in your banks in total that number. I think it's good to know how much you have sitting in your bank account. Now then we come to the various investments. Here you can have your various stockbrokers or even brokers that offer high interest, because right now I use a number of those where I get very high interest paid on my cash holding. In a way similar like a bank, but here it's more my traditional bank accounts. For investments, these are my actual investments that I'm making. For example, in the active brokers, my stockbroker of choice, I would just open the app over here, see the number there is, and that obviously fluctuates, right? If it's a very good month, that number goes up. If it's a bad month, my stock has been dropping, that number will be lower. But regardless of what it is, I'm just gonna write it over here. So let's say in this case, you have 22,000 in your stock brokerage. I have Lightyear, another amazing stockbroker, and I use it to get some nice interest on my cash. Then Trading 212, another one of my favorite stockbrokers that I use, where I have quite a bit of money sitting there in stocks, as well as where I get 4.2% interest on all my euros sitting there. So that's quite a number and substantial income, which I put, as I've shown you before, over here in the interest column. But of course, also my capital I want to track. How much is the actual amount? I want to track that amount, let's say 8,000 euros in this case, and you get the drift. You go through my crypto holdings, of course. I would just open my crypto exchange, which is Nexo, which is my crypto exchange of choice. If you want to sign up to that and benefit from the crypto boom that's going on right now, then use my link in the description below and you'll get $25 worth of free Bitcoin to get you started. And then Ledger, of course, which is my hardware wallet of choice, where I have the majority of my holdings kind of in a cold storage to make sure it's safe over there. So that's obviously a higher amount, let's say 30K. Again, this might fluctuate depending on the Bitcoin price, but just on the first day of every month, I open the app and then put it there, right? So it fluctuates and I obviously add to those positions, but it's just good to track, right? So I can see in total, what is my total investments? And then in case you have also some real estate, you might add this over here and you can add the actual value. So what I recommend doing it, if it's paid off, it's very simple, right? You put the market value and you're not gonna track the market value every single month, right? It also fluctuates a little bit, but every once in a while, I just go online and see what are other apartments in that same complex or area selling, so I get an idea of how much potentially I could get for my property. So in my case, they're paid off, so I know the value, what it is, and what I would be getting if I sold it. But for example, if you have a new property that you bought, but you only paid, let's say 10% of that property, the rest is still to be financed with a mortgage, then I would take only 10% of the value. So let's say the apartment is worth 200,000, you paid off 10% of the principal of the mortgage, not interest, principal, the actual amount of the building of the mortgage. then I would put here 10% of 200,000. So let's say 20,000. Now, other people might prefer putting the full amount, let's say 200,000, and then put the mortgage amount and deduct it. So you put the mortgage left to be paid 180,000. So in the end, it comes to the same number. I just prefer doing it this way rather than seeing a crazy inflated number. But if you wanted to, you could just add a line as mortgage, and then instead of plus, you put a minus and it deducts the amount. And the last column is if you have a business or other assets you want to put over here, a fancy car, an expensive watch. Some watches are worth 40, 50,000, right? You're going to put this over here because it's part of your net worth, right? If you sold it tomorrow, you could liquidate it and make money from it. I wouldn't put your furniture or some things you have around, but really high value, expensive things that you want to track, put them over here. And in the end, you will have your net worth number. So that's basically the sum of all those various assets that you have over here, as you can see, all add up. And then that's what you get in the end. And then obviously, as you track this along over time, hopefully you will see this graph going up in value. And that's so nice to see, in my case at least. I think for many other people who are really serious at growing the income and their savings and of course investments over time, your net worth starts growing. And that's the whole essential part, because even if in the end you make profits every single month, but all your investments are going negative and pulling you down, the net worth is still going to go negative, right? So in the end, it's a summary of having a profit plus smart investments that will build your net worth over time. And lastly, I added also one column to track some KPIs. In my case, I want to track my YouTube growth. So I will put every single month and kind of see how the growth has been. And also it's nice when I go back, 1-2 years to see where I came from at what month I had how many subscribers. And I think it's really nice. But once again, in my case, YouTube is relevant. In your case, you might want to track something else. Maybe your weight, maybe your Instagram followers, maybe anything really. It's up to you. I just think it's nice to track certain KPIs that are relevant for you. And yeah, see hopefully the growth over time. I think it's always nice and rewarding. And by the way, that's a good time if you haven't yet. Hit the subscribe button, really helps out the channel a lot and it's really much appreciated. And there you have it. I think it's really straightforward exercise. Honestly, it shouldn't be taking you longer than half an hour. Maybe the first time a little bit longer, but once you get the hang of it, it's such an amazing and powerful tool to allow you to track your income, your spendings, your overall net worth. I think these are numbers we should all be knowing, tracking and taking serious, right? Because just by closing your eyes and hoping it is kind of growing over time, that's not how it works. The same in business. If we don't actively look at something and manage it, it won't happen by miracle. So you have to actively work towards it, understand what it is, understand where you're spending too much, where you're earning too little. These things help you to achieve your goals, which hopefully will be financial freedom eventually. And if you want to do this exercise for yourself, I made it as a free download for you, which you can use. You find a link down in the description below. Get it, start playing around with it, and hopefully it will be useful for you. Next up, check out this video over here. As always, thanks a lot for watching. Stay healthy, get wealthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.